Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Outcast RWBY-a-thon. That's right, we're back, finally, with no longer teasing it, we're actually doing it, RWBY Volume 5. And with that said, I am your host, Wolf, and I am joined by...
The uncharacteristically late HC.
And the characteristically late Rush.
Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, you can blame HC for this being so late. I have. It's worked for me so far. It's going to probably continue to work because it was definitely all his fault.
Here's the thing, though. In the previous times, you were full of shit. Now you actually have reasoning, and you have solid water.
I'm never wrong, eventually, HC.
No. You have sometimes that you're wrong, but you can blame this on me and my schedule because finding a day to record this was hell.
As they say, HC, a broken clock is right at least 2 times a day.
Well, you spent your 2 times, or at least one of it. I'm not sure if you were wrong at another time. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. We'll do an Outcast or a Berkcast about it at another point. Anyway, you are the host now. Go.
All right,
make us talk about the show.
I guess jumping right into it, RWBY Volume 5, our general thoughts and opinions, non-spoilers, before we get into episode by episode. If you're not familiar with our show, we like to start off with overall thoughts about the show in general without spoiling anything. Then we'll go into kind of going over things a little bit episode by episode and more spoiler territory. I guess I'll start us off with saying this is my personal favorite volume of the show so far. No, I've not seen anything from Volume 6 yet, just pointing that out. So I can't say. That might change, but until then, as of now, Volume 5 is definitely my personal favorite from the show so far.
Okay. In my opinion, not that I think it's a bad season. Like, I like a lot of the scenes in it. I like a few of the ideas in it. But I do feel this is the one season that I think was a bit too, like, I think this one dragged for a bit too much.
You're out.
Yeah, I know.
HC, it's okay to insult the host when you're the host, but when Wolf is the host, you don't insult him.
No, you can't do that.
God forbid when I'm the host. You're just going to be moved out of the channel left and right.
Well, luckily you're not the host, so But anyway, if Wolf is offended by opinions, we shouldn't have done this. But we shouldn't even start the. But anyway, again, now that it's a bad season, I like a lot of the stuff in it. But I do like there were some stuff which I was like, is this really necessary? Do we really need to? Because this season is 14 episodes.
Yes.
And so, maybe if it were 10 or 11, I would be easier on it. But again, some stuff just felt a bit.
It is interesting to hear for me to hear you say that this dragged a bit. And we'll get into it as we start going over episode by episode a little bit more. But
probably.
It's interesting to me to hear you say that. Very interesting, considering what I think of Volume 5.
Okay.
But, Rush, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll get my thoughts in. Apparently something's very squeaky in my computer case, but I'll mute myself and figure it out soon. But, my thoughts, I did like this one. I'd have to do a rewatch of Season 4. Volume 4. Just to see what I thought of them both, because like it's a real close, as of right now in my mind, it's really close between Volume 4 and Volume 5. So yeah, I think it's just a close call. I did really enjoy the season. I don't think I got much of a dragging on. Granted, yes, the episodes were very long, and at least the first 2.
Comparatively, yeah.
Comparatively. But we'll find out. Yeah, we'll go over each individual episode.
I guess, right, I'll come in and say the reason Volume 5 for me is my personal favorite is because it does a lot of things that I enjoy seeing from shows. There's a lot of stuff here that RWBY hasn't really done as much of before until Volume 4, and then they really started doing this in Volume 5. There's the show, in my opinion, in Volume 5, and Volume 4 does this as well, but to a lesser degree. Volume 5 really starts to take a step back and say, let's have characters interact we've not seen interact before, and let's give these characters moments to breathe. RWBY, from Volume 1 up until Volume 3, and Volume 4, I think, starts is when you start to see the show slow down a bit, and I personally really enjoy that and really like that because it gives things time to breathe. It gives the scenes and these characters time to breathe and just interact with one another apart from the story. Up until Volume 4, it was just from one thing to the next, very quickly moving through our story. Like, go back to Volume 3. It's consistently a fight scene almost every episode, even if that fight scene ends in some comedic way and doesn't really have an actual good ending, if that's what you feel. Either way, like, it's just consistently fight scene, fight scene, fight scene, fight scene, fight scene. Very few times to just sit back and say, okay, let's take a moment to breathe and just enjoy these characters and the scenery and things of that nature, right? And this world. You get very little of that in Volume 3. Volume 4 and 5 is where you start to see a lot more of that, and that's personally why I really enjoy Volumes 4 and 5. Especially 5.
Maybe this has something to do with why I think this season dragged a bit, because you just said that compared to the others, it is the slowest season in terms of pacing.
Definitely is.
And maybe I'm just too used to the pacing of the other seasons that, seeing this is kind of, so the new, this volume taking its time a bit more is probably a bit more jarring. Based on what we had until now.
It's definitely different, yeah. I would agree. And I think a lot of people were very much like you, and still are, that they didn't like the slower pace of the show. Out of nowhere, they felt it.
It's not bad. Don't get me wrong. Again, it's not that it doesn't make it bad, but
it's definitely different.
It's jarring, and I do think that even though it's nice to have a slower pace, and I like some of the slower pace stuff in the season, but I think that not everything that we slowed down for really needed.
Fair.
You know what I mean?
I would agree. I think there's some stuff like, you could probably, we didn't have to slow down a bunch for that, but I think there's other things that they should have slowed down for, and they didn't.
Okay, fair enough. But maybe we should start going over the episodes and find out.
Well, I guess segueing straight into it. Episode 1, Welcome to Haven.
Spoilers from this point forward. I'm assuming people who are listening to this have already watched this volume, considering the fact that the volume 6 is just now started airing. Which, by the way, we won't cover volume 6 until it's fully out. Just pointing it out there. But if you haven't watched volume 5 yet, this is your chance to close the video, do something else, watch the season, and then come back.
Unless you really enjoy the Berkcast retelling, partial retelling of RWBY.
Let's say it like this: we are as good as a retelling of a season show as the last Airbender movie. That basically what this shit was. It was like one person summarizing the thing from off of Wikipedia.
This is true. This is more or less what we do. This is true.
Only we do stop to talk about the emotional stuff and the fillers, and we actually care about the show.
We're also just as unprofessional and just as unamusing, though. Debatable, but still, yeah.
Debatable, but okay. Let me tell you this. I think more people want to kill M. Night Shyamalan for what he did to the last Airbender.
Moving on. Get out of the hole, HC. Quit digging.
Yeah.
Episode 1.
Sorry. Welcome to Haven. Okay. You want to lead us into this?
I can. I guess I'll start off like the very first scene. I think this is a great intro to Mistral, getting to kind of see the city and what it looks like. it would have been neat, I suppose, if it was not done in just still shots and just the cast talking over those still shots, but actually got to see the cast kind of moving through the city a little bit. But that's very much a nitpick, not a necessary thing. I think this is a great way to save time, to save budget. You kind of get some still shots of the show and the cast reacting and talking over it. It's a neat
I
little
will
thing.
say that, not counting season 6, which is being released as we speak, but there's also, I think this is the best looking season, and the shots of Haven reflect that.
Mistral, you mean?
Mistral.
Haven is the academy. Mistral is the kingdom, or the city.
My bad. I see. Welcome
it gets
to Haven,
confusing.
So,
welcome to Haven. Yeah, agreed. I get where you're coming from, but
okay.
Go ahead.
But the visuals are the best in the show so far, if you ask me. And yeah, that's my note about that.
I guess going straight into like some of the different scenes we see, I really enjoy seeing, like, we have Weiss, who's left home now, and she's kind of on her way to Mistral, and we see her in the ship with, if I'm not mistaken, his name is Pilot Guy, is what he's referred to.
I think, yeah.
It's just like he has no name. He's just like the fandom refers to him as just Pilot Guy, which is great. Guy. I love that. But yeah, I love, like, again, I actually really enjoy Pilot Guy and Weiss's back and forth. That was fun.
Yeah.
But I do. But go ahead.
No, I just figured we see them in the next episode, not this one.
We do. No, we see them in this episode. Like, it's very brief, but we do see them because we have her coming into the cockpit and kind of talking with him a little bit, and then we hear the alert come on the radio, and someone's in trouble, and this guy immediately says, and Weiss asks, like, hey, are we going to go help them? And he's like, no. 1, we're smuggling. 2, we're not equipped to fight Grimm. And it's very much, I like this is one of those moments. This is something that I think I like from Volume 5, because Volume 5 does more of this. It shows us that this world isn't pleasant, that this world is dangerous, that this world, if you're not a hunter, if you're not protected by huntsmen and huntresses, you very much are at risk consistently and considerably so.
That's why one of the things I liked about Season 4, which we actually got to see the wall.
Yeah, and Volume 5 continues this. Like, it shows us these small moments within the world that are like, hey, Grimm are dangerous. They're not just these, I know we've shown that, Weiss and Team RWBY and Team Juniper and Team Ranger, all of them can take down Grimm very easily with very little regard, but that's not always the case. Like, not for everyone else, potentially. It's still very dangerous, and I like this. This is a great way to show that still, I feel.
Yes. But anyway, yeah, so Team Ranger arrives at Haven, and we see Lionheart, who, is it in this episode that we get the twist about him?
Yes, technically. I mean, technically you got it well before then if you knew who Watts was. At, like, Volume 4's end, you saw Lionheart. If you knew, well, you didn't know who it was specifically, but you assumed, like, he might have been evil then. But yeah, you definitely find out in this episode that he is evil.
Yeah,
he has betrayed Osmond.
Yeah, and see, the way he talks to Crow and Team Ranger is like, bad guy. I can tell he's a bad guy.
I do love, though, that, like, they have, again, like, coming back to that, I love their detailing out of the world like this. You have Lionheart sit there and tell Crow, hey, when Beacon fell, when Vale was attacked, that was bad for everyone. You don't get it, do you? Like, Mistral's hurting right now. We're very much lacking on hunters. Hey, it was Lionheart's fault because of that. But anyways, an aside, we'll get to that. But yeah, like, you can definitely, like, he's telling Crow, like, hey, we're lacking on hunters. We're lacking on defense for the kingdom. We're definitely hurting. The Grimm are more numerable than before. They're more active than before because people are afraid. They're worried because of what they saw of what happened in Vale, and they have no word of what's going on. And then Atlas closing its own borders, like, people are scared. They're worried. So the Grimm are even more active and more, angry than before. And it's like, this is good. I love detailing out the world in this way because it fits, it works, and it's just a great way to do this, in my opinion. More of this. Please.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else about this? There's Ozpin is Ozpin has a new body, I guess you
Yes.
can say.
Well, we found this out in Volume 4 as well, but yes,
Yeah, but
Osmond is
now
within Oscar, and you do finally get Oscar introduced to Team Ranger.
Crow and Crow and the gang, and yeah, so basically Ozpin is kind of like Venom. He takes over people's bodies as hosts or something.
I like
That's
how
basically
you
what it
use
is.
what is essentially a like kind of a virus almost. Like Venom's definitely like evil, and I like how
Yeah.
that's the thing that comes to your mind. Like, hey, Osmond's a virus. Like, huh? Interesting.
Not
Interesting.
necessarily in the virus, not necessarily in the virus sense, in the sense that there's this double personality to
Still yet
the person.
interesting. That's what you choose. Is Osmond evil?
Well, there's your conspiracy.
I mean, Osmond's old enough, and considering the "I've made more mistakes than any man, woman, or child will ever make" line, not seen Volume 6, so there could be things revealed in Volume 6 as well that we don't know about either. Who knows?
Who knows? But anyway, we have Oscar, Ozpin's new buddy, I guess, introduced to the team. We'll get to him later.
There'll definitely be more coming up for him.
Yeah.
We have Ilya introduced in this episode as well. Blake encounters Ilya. We get to see a little bit of Yang dealing with the bandit. We get a little sly Goldilocks reference, and we get to see that Yang actually hasn't recovered from everything that's happened to her. Like, she's not fully over that PTSD yet.
Yes, that's actually one thing I liked.
That's something I enjoyed as well, because watching Volume 4, to me, when I first watched Volume 4, right, before Volume 5 had released, there was the worry, like, it feels like you've had Yang get over this really quickly, and like you're not going to touch on this anymore, and I hope that's not the case.
Then again, in Volume 4, she didn't really do anything that will trigger it. And in this season, she has more stuff.
This is true, but it definitely, like, hey, she's fighting with her dad now. She's sparring. She's training. She's over it. She's not, and it's good to see that. It's good that they remembered this and showed this. Within Volume 5 as well, and hopefully, still yet going forward, we'll still see more of this and her coming to grips and terms with this.
So, Ash, now that you're here, what did you think about episode 1 of this season?
Well, I can tell you what, everything you guys said in the past couple minutes was absolutely true.
Even the part when you guys disagree, that's great.
Yeah, oh man, both were true.
I mean, it's glad to know that Rush agrees with our opinions on him.
Yeah, exactly. So... oh gosh, let's see. This one, it's episode 1.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, I'm still a little frazzled.
That's okay.
Accidentally knocked out a cable without knowing it, so my computer didn't completely restart the correct time. But anyway.
Oh boy.
I was like, oh god, did I break something? But then I'm like, oh, never mind. Thankfully, it was a detailed message. Plug this cable back in, you dumbass.
That was behind the scenes with Rush.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's see. They have just arrived to Haven. They talk to Lionheart, which, oh boy, he's a character and a half. But we have to get to him later.
The Cowardly Lion.
Yes, the Cowardly Lion. I'm glad that. I mean, that was kind of very obvious.
It is.
I didn't know it brought that up, or it had brought that up yet. And then they meet Oscar Pin. Although technically they did that at the end of Volume 4, right?
Yeah, you do have like a Volume 4. You have Oscar coming to Crow in the bar, but they do that again in this volume, and in this episode specifically, and it's kind of like to show you it's not so much a time skip or a retcon. It's more so just this is kind of the progression of events, like what you saw from volume 4 as an teaser was just this event in this episode. Like it's not something that happened after the fact or anything of that nature.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, and then is this? Oh man, this is where they. So in the arc for Blake, this is with Lila, the chameleon lady, and she.
Ilya.
Ilya.
Yeah, it's Ilya.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
definitely a
was
weird
just
name
reading-
to see if you've never if you don't remember it right offhand. Yeah.
remember it.
Yeah.
Thanks, HC. If so, this is where they talk to the. Is it the White Fang? The local
The Albane brothers. Yeah.
Albane brothers. Okay, but they're part of the White Bane on the island, or White Fang on the island, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So just clarifying some things. So,
Recapping
yeah.
with Rush.
Recapping with Rush, because I'm trying to get. Look, man, it's been so long since I saw this. You know, it was
It's
like,
okay.
hey, let's go do this. Let's go do this. No, let's not do it. Okay. Anyway, so yes, they captured Ilya, or not captured it, but they found some information on the scroll. Like, talked to the Albions. This is the part where you're like, I mean, you always knew they were shady, but you're like, yeah, this is gonna end in something not not preferable. And then we get to Yang's character arc, I should say, in this, but it's not really. Right. Thanks. So one thing I do want to bring up about the first episode is that Weiss doesn't have a part in the first episode. So.
No, she has a small part with the pilot guy, and that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty much it. Yeah, but it's nothing like so. I mean, granted, Yang's part was riding up to the gas station,
And getting hit on.
and then hitting on.
And then
just
hitting on.
somebody else.
And then hit on. Hit on the pilot guy. Awesome.
What? No, we didn't hit on the pilot guy.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
That I don't remember that. But yeah, so I do at least remember Yang's part, as small as it was. But she and Weiss had a less upfront part in the story, or in the first episode. But yeah, that's all I can really say about the first episode. Of course, the 15 minutes of recapping were more for me.
Fair. Expect
Okay.
that for every episode going forward.
Pretty much.
Thank you.
But
Sure. At least I'll be part of the
so
discussion, so I'll know.
This is true.
so going on to episode 2.
But I do want to mention, like, I love, Drunk Crow is Fun Crow. Drunkle Crow. And I loved the background music for when, if I'm not mistaken, Oscar is being revealed to Team Ranger.
Apparently,
And Crow comes in. Like, I love the background music for that. It's really enjoyable and fun.
whenever you make a character go drunk in some way, shape, or form, it's always enjoyable.
This is true. You're making that
You
sound.
really-
You're making that sound again. HC, that scraping sound.
Oh, sorry, new chair. Okay, I'll try and
Not move. Ever.
yeah.
You are a statue. I will mention the intro. What did you think about that?
Actually, you know something? The song by itself, I think, is fine, but in contact with the intro, it doesn't work for me. I don't know.
Actually, I was gonna say the same thing. Like, I think Volume Four's intro was better, and I've always mentioned right with these episodes that I love the progression with the intros and how they've consistently evolved to tell a little bit more and a little bit more of a story with just the intro alone. I think Volume Five didn't do this as well. I think it's not terrible. It's fine for what it is, and I don't mind. Like, I enjoy the music by itself as well. But I think Volume 4 did it better, and I don't think this one came across as well as they would have. But I think they tried to be more subtle with some of the things they got across within the intro and what it might pertain to, but I don't think it worked as well for them.
Okay, fair enough.
But,
so episode 2?
Yes, with that said, moving on to episode 2, Dread in the Air.
Okay, so I think the main part of this episode is the fight scene with Weiss and this all of the
Queen, the Lancers and the Queen Lancer.
Yeah.
The Bee Grim.
Mm-hmm.
This
was a fun fight.
Yeah, absolutely. We finally get to see Weiss's summoning in action.
Mm-hmm. That night thing, that ice night.
Mm-hmm.
One way to call it, I know. And it was also fun kind of having essentially a dogfight in this show. Ships flying around and maneuvering through stuff, and yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, this was true. Like, it's definitely it's a fun fight to watch and see, and I definitely think it shows off like some great action for Volume 5. Before that, you do have Salem and Cinder having their little chat with one another, and I really enjoy that. Like, seeing more of Salem and just how people view her. Like, it's very interesting. Like, you see Cinder and Emerald being
she's a cool villain,
passive. Like, I'm very interested to see more of her as a villain, and you also get to see like why Lionheart fears her so much. And you do see a new Grimm. You see these Seeker Grimm, like very much like floating orbs with tentacles. Mm-hmm. Very interesting designed Grimm. Yeah. But the big thing for me this episode is Adam. And our new character that is introduced, Sienna Khan.
Okay.
All right. I guess you don't remember who Sienna is, do you?
To be honest, no.
Sienna is the leader, the High Leader of the White Fang.
Yeah, I know she's the leader of the White Fang because it's written here, but
and she's killed.
This episode, that's why I don't remember. That's why I don't remember.
All right, this is gonna make this a little bit harder, but this is where I go into. I've danced around this subject a little bit, and this is where I think it's interesting that you think Volume 5 dragged a bit, because I think this is a great example. I think Sienna Khan's death in Volume 5, being introduced in one scene and dying in that exact same scene, is very much. This is the pacing problem. It's very much an example of the pacing problem that RWBY has, in which that it moves too fast for its own good. And this is why I find it interesting that you think Volume 5 dragged on for you, because I think Volume 5 still moves too fast.
Well, this scene is an exception to the rule. Then it's not. I'm not basing it just on this scene.
Fair enough. But I will say, right, I personally don't feel like Adam earns this kill. It's very much
no, because how much did we really see of him? Like, he was in the Blake trailer episode in Volume 1. Mm-hmm. Then he was a bit in Volume 3. He wasn't in Volume 4, if I remember correctly.
It's very much right. Like, who is Sienna to us as well? Like, what does it matter if Adam's the one who kills her? I very much think, right, the show could have done better to set this up. And I actually do think, right, that the show tried or wanted to set this up in a different way, but either they didn't have the time and or they didn't get it across in the way they wanted to because they went through it so quickly. And I'll point these out again as we get into the episodes that they're in. But you have the Albane brothers much later on, watching a recording of Adam and saying, if he becomes a problem, we'll get rid of him. I find that interesting because to me, I sit back and I see this scene, and it sets up Adam to be the leader of the White Fang, sure, but Adam, in my opinion, isn't a leader. He's very much a symbol. He's very much someone who is consumed, as Blake says in this very volume, is consumed by his spitefulness and his rage and that hatred, and he wants to just get back at humanity for the perceived slights to him, right? And I think that's interesting. I think that's a great setup for a villain like this, and I enjoy villains like this. But, right, and I do think killing Sienna was necessary to move his character forward, but I do think they should have set it up more. I think instead of getting just one scene with Sienna, we should have had more of an episode with Sienna, right? And for me, the reason I say that is because if you do that, it gives us as an audience time to understand who Sienna is to Adam, the relationship they had with one another, and what that means for him to kill her, right? But not only that, it gives you time to set up the Albane brothers as well. Show them as, it seems like you wanted to, show them as the ones who are moving in the shadows to help Adam gain the position that he gains. They're the ones who get people who are loyal to Adam in place, who are willing to follow the symbol that Adam is in place so he can more easily take down Sienna. And the reason you do this is because later on in this same volume, we see Blake take down Adam at the very end with one hit, and Adam very much unstable without the Albane brothers. I think that, again, shows that he's not a leader. He doesn't know how to lead. It shows that he's very much unstable, and that you can clearly see this when Blake takes him down so easily, and when he very easily loses his shit when he's been cornered. Like, again, all of this, I think, would have been much better exemplified if this wouldn't have just been such a small scene, and you would have dedicated possibly a full episode or just more time to it. And this is, coming back to it, this is why I think RWBY has a pacing issue, because it rushes through things like this when it definitely shouldn't, in my opinion.
Okay, fair enough.
I know you don't have much to say on that because you don't clearly remember it all, and you're not as invested in it as I am, maybe, but these are my thoughts, and I figure I'll share them with our audience.
Yeah, sure.
They can decide.
Well, let's be honest here. The RWBY fans who are listening to this are probably coming for you, because Rush and I are the noobs.
They're definitely
here.
not. They would be sorely disappointed if that's their decision.
Well, anything else to say on episode 2?
I like the, hey, let's show you gravity dust within this world in a unique way. It's like we have floating islands because of gravity dust. That's a unique little thing. You know, and then we see that Weiss is kidnapped by, Raven and her group.
Yeah, that's the end of it. The
Yes,
end of
that
the
is
episode, isn't it?
The very end, yes.
Okay.
And I do enjoy the music during the fight that Weiss has with the Lancers. Like, it's really enjoyable. Like, a lot of the background music, I should mention, for Volume 5. Like, all the background music for RWBY is really great, but I think Volume 5 really excels, in my opinion, in this regard. Like, there's a lot of just great background tracks that are just really help things stand out that much more, in my opinion.
Cool.
I took the show for that one. Is there anything either of you would like to add?
You said it all. I'm good.
Fair enough. Rush.
Well, I think your analysis of Adam was interesting, because I like the very last scene at the very end, or Adam's very last scene in this whole volume, kind of gave me that whole feeling. I mean, you could just see his slow spiral down.
Oh yeah, it definitely does, but I think it could have been better exemplified, maybe. But yeah.
Oh, I know, but it was still nice that they actually showed it.
Oh, sure.
Like, let's go back to our mainstay here, Race to the Edge. We kind of get Vigo like losing his edge to Hiccup, but it's always
Edge.
We should really get rid of HC. There we go.
Yeah. Anyway,
It was you brought this on yourself.
I didn't. I just made a statement. You didn't have to make a joke out of it.
You could have chosen other words, but whatever.
No. Anyway, so back to the example. We have Vigo getting, for lack of a better word, obsessed, even though, like I said, I'll explain later actually, getting obsessed with Hiccup. But all we really get is a few scenes of him, either at a map or something, and then Riker just explicitly stating, "Oh, you're obsessed with him." And so it's, I mean, you get a different kind of progression, but it's more told than shown, as opposed to where Adams is very well shown. So, I mean, this is kind of where it all starts. Well, not where it all starts, but this is the catalyst, I think, for that downward spiral for him. And I think it's at least it's definitely notable that they at least did in the beginning of the season. Volume.
We should mention, right? You've seen, like you said, you've seen the Volume 6 character short. I haven't.
Yes.
And it's worth for me to point out, like, maybe the Volume 6 character short addresses some of this issue. Like, I sit back and say, I would have liked to have seen the relationship that Adam and Sienna had, and I think it would have helped out a lot in this scene, right? With the scene.
And I completely agree with you. And, I...
Does the Volume 6 character short give you some of that?
Okay, let's go through this. It goes through all of Adam's time in the White Fang.
Yeah, I know it does. I know what it goes through. I've just not seen it.
Okay. Well, yes, it addresses you get to learn a lot more about Sienna. And so, I hadn't even considered that when I was thinking about it. But yes, without that character short, you're like, oh, okay, who's this old lady? Okay, she's dead. Like, pretty much. So.
Yeah, I think, I do think, right, this is the writers coming out and saying, in their way, like, hey, we screwed up here, and this is them trying to make up for it, I feel, which, I do have to praise them for. Like, they realize they made a mistake, and they did try to fix that mistake by giving us something in return for that, and I do have to praise them for that.
7-minute character short?
Yeah, like 6 minutes, I think, somewhere in that area. Again, like, either way, the fact that they went out of their way to make something for that, I think shows that they realized, hey, we messed up here. We didn't get across what we wanted to get across. Use this character short with the context of Volume 5 to help that scene more. I do have to praise them for doing that because they realized they messed up and that they did make a mistake in getting across what I think they wanted to get across, but ultimately failed to do. Within Volume 5, anyways. Like, I do have to praise them for doing that and realizing that.
Fair enough.
I guess if that's it, though, moving on. Episode 3, Unforeseen Complications.
So, first of all, we start with the press conference with Blake and her parents, and when they try and get all the Farnes to help him Israel, and I really like this scene. For one, seeing Blake in this position of power and actually doing something with it, try and talk to the people, try and get.
It's Gira that's giving the speech this time around, but I agree.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But the point is, I like the idea behind this, and I also like the idea that not all of the Farnes are automatically okay with this. Some of them are going to be, some of them are going to oppose, some of them are going to raise an eyebrow and say, "But wait." So I just thought it was a good representation of what a press conference like this would actually be like, and I like that, especially in the kind of world we live in today. And that's something.
Agreed. But this was definitely really enjoyable, and we get to see Blake and Kali comforting Kira, and that's absolutely adorable. And then we get to see Sun reach up and like, "You got this, man." It's like, thanks, Sun. Yeah. I love Sun and Gira's back and forth in this volume. That's actually really enjoyable.
I think before every future college presentation I'll need Sun telling me, "You get this, man," and to know I can do this.
It's helpful. It would be helpful. Sun's great moral support.
Yeah. But I think it will probably be one of those. Hey son, I just broke up for my girlfriend in the last 10 years. What can you help me? You got this. Yeah. No, if this is all he has to say, it's a bit of a problem.
All right, moving on.
Moving on.
We get
before
to
this is
see.
get-
I think this is our first introduction to Vernal in this episode.
Hmm.
The Spring Maiden, quote unquote.
Okay. I'm trying to look for him in the description. I can't find him.
To her.
It's a her. Oh.
Yes, Vernal's a her. That her.
Oh.
That's really small.
All of the maidens are
Female,
women.
yes.
Yeah.
But yes, we get the quote unquote.
Okay, if you got something to say, go ahead. I'm trying to remember here.
It's all right.
Maybe we should have.
So-
The two of you definitely should have watched RWBY again for this. But anyways.
No, I knew about it. I was just
Guys,
Hello, we hear you, HC. Okay, I
Does
think
he hear us though?
I don't know. Maybe he doesn't. Now's the chance to talk about him though if he can't hear us.
All right. Anyway, I do remember this part mostly because after watching it before HC came into the chat for one of the rubies, we talked about it. But anyway, so
Mm-hmm.
yes, Yang gets this is when Weiss is under capture. This is sort of before Yang gets there and
Yeah.
discovers Weiss. But we get her meeting basically all of Raven's crew, the whole
Tribe.
Banditos tribe. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, whatever. And HC, if you're talking, no, we can't hear you.
yeah, there
Okay,
was
no,
a
we
pa-
can now.
yeah, there was. I couldn't hear you as well. There was some sort of a problem here, but it's fixed. I'm here.
Welcome back.
All right.
Yeah.
Technical
So-
difficulties of the show.
Yeah, there's been multiple today. But yeah, so she gets captured, and I forget. Did she know that Raven was Yang and Ruby's mom?
Not at this
Or
point.
not?
She didn't.
Yeah,
no.
not at this point. Okay. She pulled an Astrid. That's your mother?
And now,
She
now
does.
you know why I get my dramatic flair.
She legitimately
Yeah,
does.
Anyway, so basically she gets captured, and we see before it kind of cuts away to the next arc in this episode, her trying to summon the knight,
Mm-hmm.
Umber Knight.
Yeah. A mini
But
version.
then, yeah, a mini version. We also get, so we finally figure out like how far Ozpin can control Oscar, and
Mm-hmm.
in the sparring session, and I thought that was interesting because I was wondering, how
The
much does it
sparring
go?
session
Because-
is next episode, but we do get to see Osmond take over control of Oscar's body in this episode.
yeah.
Like the big thing
Oh,
this
in this
episode is
episode, okay.
Osmond talking about his past to Ruby and Ren,
Yeah,
Nora,
so-
and
That I
John.
remember.
Yeah.
Like that's the big
Does he-
thing for this
is-
episode.
Is this the one where does he give the maiden talk in this episode or not?
Does he? I think he's mostly talking about his past. I think he does talk a bit about the maidens, but it kind of goes with Osmond's past, if you will. So I guess you could say yes. The
Well, I
maidens
mean,
are his past in a way.
Yeah. He drops a bomb and is like, I was that guy.
Like basically saying he's centuries, if not thousands of years old. However old Osmond's old. He's very old.
Mhm.
He's very old. Yeah.
I know that feeling, husband. I'm old too.
Right.
But yeah, I do love Ruby and everyone else's faces when he starts explaining stuff to them and starts talking to them. I love the looks they give on their faces. It's very fun. Like I gotta laugh out of that.
was wrong about the sparring, but
But still, yeah.
We still got the first instance that Osmond can, if, well, okay, I'm not gonna say that yet. Osmond can take control of Oscar's body when Oscar voluntarily gives it. For now, wink, wink. But that's pretty much it. Yeah. For this episode.
By the way, I'm not sure. Actually, no, it's not that episode. I'll comment on it later.
That what?
I said that it's. I thought something happens in this episode, but it doesn't happen in this. It happens in a later episode, so I'll talk about it then.
Okay. Moving on. Or do you have something to add, Wolf?
No.
To episode 4.
Episode 4, lighting the fire.
This is the episode where Yang and Weiss reunite, right?
Yes. This starts off with Yang getting surrounded by bandits, and we get to see her fighting. And I'll start off immediately and say, love the music here once again. Going to continue to point this out. Like that backing track, you can hear some of Yang's older themes being kind of remixed a little bit and made into something a little bit different, and I love that. It's really great and really enjoyable to hear.
Okay. One thing I will say is that, regarding Team RWBY as a whole, I think like Yang had more interaction with Blake and RWBY than Weiss. So it was, and Weiss had more of an interaction with RWBY than anyone else. So it was nice to see Yang and Weiss working together in this one. Like you can, it's not. You could tell they're teammates and good friends before, but in this one you really saw it, and that was cool.
And it's something I love about Volume 5 is because we get to see they start showing these characters interacting who we've not seen interact all that much before, and we get to see them interacting with one another and having these moments together, and like seeing Weiss just run up and hug Yang is just, oh, that's adorable. That's a fun moment. That's good. Thank you.
That's a ship, right?
Yes, it is. Freezer Burn.
Yeah. Okay.
Is the name of the ship, if you were wondering.
Freezer Burn. I actually like that. It sounds like an action movie.
Just like the ship name for Weiss and RWBY is White Rose, the ship name for Blake and Yang is Bumblebee, and I think that's it. Yeah. Like there are many other ship names that I could give you, but that list is long.
I actually want to hear about a certain ship name when we'll get to it.
Oh dear.
Cinder and Yang is bitch slap.
No, that's Fire Dragon, if I'm not mistaken. I think so.
Let me have my bitch slap.
No.
Oh man. Okay. What? So what else do we have to talk about in this episode?
We have our training session, and we have Oscar and RWBY fighting with one another, and RWBY trying to learn hand-to-hand combat since she's very clearly not good without her. She's very clearly not capable of fighting without her scythe. So, and then we see her winning against Oscar, and all of a sudden Oscar pulls out headbutt move and clearly wins.
Yeah.
Or Osmond pulls out headbutt move since he takes over. And going back to what Rush said, this is where we get to see.
Like I said, Rush didn't hear it, but when I say Venom, this is what I mean. Like the other personality takes in, and all of a sudden you are badass.
And this is, Rush was actually bringing this up last episode, that Osmond can take over whenever he wants. Oscar doesn't have to just let him. So it's very interesting to see that. And it kind of goes along with what Osmond talks about, where they are two souls sharing the same body, and they very much will kind of merge as time goes on, the way he explains it, right?
Yeah.
And instead of being Oscar and Osmond, it'll be Oscar.
I like Oscar.
Yeah, Oscar's better.
Oscar sounds better, though. I think you're biased, Rush. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, just to let the listeners know, as soon as Wolf said, "I know you're allergic to that," Rush accidentally left the call. So
Accidentally.
there you go.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that is the story.
I'm
Anything
giving you
it's
credit. Shut up. Anyway, um,
anything you would like to add?
um, okay, I will say something about this. That when Blake, why Blake? When Yang arrives at the Ravens camp, there is kind of a there is kind of a a discussion between
Mm-hmm.
why Raven won't let Yang get Ruby. And it's a topic that comes back again later in this episode, and that comes back later in future episodes. That's what I mean with the dranking thing. Like, why do we need plus conversations about this?
Well,
One's clear.
I don't think
I
it's
know.
not so much directed at Ruby each time. It's very much directed at Yang and Raven's relationship, which I personally think is really interesting. Like I'll come out right now and say, I love Raven. She is
Again,
definitely my favorite character from Volume 5. And seeing
okay.
her and
Again,
Yang's back and forth is interesting for me. But go ahead.
yeah. Let me explain. Like, I agree with you. Raven's great. The back and forth between her and Yang is great. And I pretty much every character named Raven has to be good by this point.
Oh no.
At least characters named Raven I came across. But anyway, Yang arrives at the camp. They talk about this. Yang and the Wise defeat the Raven's soldiers. They talk about this. They talk about this later on. Their interaction is great, but there are probably other things we can talk about and get into,
Oh,
or maybe split this conversation into places and not to just repeat every time.
uh,
Maybe it's just me.
the second conversation they have is very much Raven telling Yang and Weiss what Ozpin has already told Team Ruby and the others, and we don't really have to set through all of that conversation. It's which I think is good. Like they do realize there's no point in having that same conversation again just to see these two characters' reactions. I think it's more important that it's Raven giving her side of the story, which is very much do you trust her side of the story, and then we get to see some of this is also next episode as well that we're getting into. So I guess we can kind of segue right into, unless anyone has anything else to say about episode 4, we can segue right into episode 5, Necessary Sacrifice. Does that sound good?
Okay, let's go
Since
with
it's
it.
kind of what we're getting into with the extra conversation stuff. Because the big thing for episode 4 is just Yang wanting to go to Ruby and not wanting to stay with Raven, and Raven kind of getting upset about that, and that kind of being Raven's character in a bit, that she is very much a bit of a petulant child if she doesn't get her way.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, I guess moving into episode 5, right? We do have, if I'm not mistaken, or is that next? That might be episode. Jeez, that might be episode 6. You've got me messed up now, guys.
Well, you're the host. You should be better.
Then again, it might be episode 4 where we get the episode
No,
where we
that's the
get.
pot calling the kettle black. There, see.
This is true. I agree.
Well, seeing how Wolf took the responsibility for this one, he should be greater. Just saying, don't repeat my mistakes.
Anyways,
Yeah, you don't have a comeback now, do ya?
I mean, I'm always better, HC.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
You don't have the exotic accent I do.
this is true. Anyways, to me, right, I think, again, it just comes down to, I do feel like each conversation is very much directed differently, like that they're very much about different things. But I guess each conversation does boil down to, in its essence, how Yang and Raven feel about one another, and especially how Yang feels about Raven and how that's affected her, right? And I do see where you're coming from, where that can get a bit old, right? And where that can drag a little bit. Like, we get it at this point. Yang has problems with Raven. Raven has problems with trusting other people. Raven has problems with letting other people get close. Raven's definitely manipulative. She's definitely not a good person, but at the same time, she's not terrible either. Like, there is good there. It's just whether or not it's just Raven's, really forced that good down because she's so mistrusting and manipulative. But there's definitely a ton there that you could talk about with this character that I'm definitely not getting across in this small bit. But I do see where you're coming from, but I still disagree with you. I guess you could say.
Okay, sure.
But I guess moving on, episode 5 in and of itself, what did you think?
Overall, it is moving the plot along, which is great. And again, I think the more this show goes on, the more I'm starting to realize Blake may be my favorite character of the main four. So it's always great to see in her.
That's
and
fair. You're joined by a lot of people.
And it's always fun seeing her in action and who she's talking to and how and the decisions she's making. So yeah, I like Blake. So sure, give me more Blake.
Fair enough. I think for me, I pointed this out earlier. I said earlier that I would point out the moments where I think the show was trying to get what I thought they were trying to get across with Adam killing Sienna throughout the season. I just don't think they did it well, and I think this episode gives us a few moments of that. Like, we hear Blake talking to Sun about Adam and how she says that Adam is very much consumed by spite, right? And that he lets that guide him. And I think that's one of those points where I think the show is trying to do something different with Sienna Khan's death scene and Adam killing her, and I think this is one of those moments that point to that. We also get the Albanes watching rewatching Adam's message, and we get them again saying like something along the lines of, "If Adam becomes too much of a problem, we'll do away with him and we'll get someone else." They don't say that exactly, sure. But to me, that's the feeling I got from the statement they make. And I think this just comes back to the show feels like it wanted to have the Albanes be bigger than what they are, but they just didn't set it up properly, in my opinion. Maybe that's just me, but that is how I feel on it. I guess the big thing here, though, is seeing Oscar calling out RWBY.
Yeah. Okay, this is the episode where both of them have that conversation in the garage, was it?
It's in the same building that they're staying in. It's just like in a dojo, I guess you would say. There's the word for it.
So, this episode, so I'm watching this, and I don't know, seeing these two interact with each other, also in the episode where they had the training. So with them, I think I also asked Wolf about this off mic for something else. Is this a ship? Is this a ship that's a thing in the fandom?
Yes, it is.
What's that ship name? I'm curious.
What'd you say, Rush?
Everything's a ship in this fandom.
Oh yes, the stories. That I've seen, and I've not even been a part of the fandom for very long, and some of the things I've seen. Oh boy, but do you take a guess as to what the ship was, to what you think the ship name might be?
I don't know. I'm not even going to try.
Fair enough. The ship name is Rose Garden.
Rose Garden.
Yes. Do not ask me why, because off of the top of my head, I really don't know. I would have to look it up. Just want to point out though. Sure, it's Oscar. It's also Ozpin. Just, keep that one in mind.
Yeah, I think
Which
this is the.
I promise you, I have seen arguments about this back and forth, or maybe not. Legitimate arguments, just people going back and forth for the fun of it, but it's definitely been fun to watch from my perspective.
Mhm. I love the from my perspective. Like, people die, people get hurt, people get insulted, but from my perspective,
I'm
it's
having
fun.
fun. Yeah, I'm absolutely having fun.
Yeah. Well, I was curious about this, so thank
But
you
yeah,
for clarifying it.
it's called Rose Garden. To be honest, I didn't
Well
think.
done.
I thought there was another ship name that you'd be asking me about, not this one.
Mhm.
But we'll get to that.
Well, this is the one.
This is the one.
Sorry
Fair
to
enough.
disappoint.
Fair enough. But it's called Rose Garden, and yes, people do ship it. Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Because as
Cool.
Resh said, everything in the show is a ship or has a ship name, and I hope has been jokingly shipped, but I genuinely can't tell with this fandom at times.
Okay, fair enough. Like people who ship this stuff, you do you. We are not judging.
You
I at least
say
don't.
you say
I,
that. You say that,
okay,
but I'm
I
definitely
don't.
judging.
I don't judge these two. Probably will.
Again, there's a ship for Zwei and Cinder, HC. That has a ship name, by the way.
What's the ship name?
Hot Dog.
Okay, I last hope for these people. Everyone else is cool.
Uh-huh.
These two, this
Uh-huh.
thing, no.
Not judging, huh? Yeah, you'll judge.
I'll judge. I'll judge the name. What kind of a ship name is Hot Dog?
Zwei's the dog,
the best
HC.
Well,
And Cinder, does the
it's
thing
still
with
a stupid
fire.
name.
No,
It's
the
still a
name is
stupid
great.
name.
The
wow.
ship, though.
He's judging now.
Hey, I didn't say I'm not. I didn't say whatever. Whatever. I
No,
can't
you
win
did
with you
say.
guys.
You
I can't
did
win.
say.
Moving
Yeah,
on.
because what?
This hole goes
I'm not
nowhere.
judging. I'm not judging Rose Garden. I'm not judging that.
Again, like I have to hand it to the RWBY fandom. Ship names they are on point with, right? Like consistently they are on point with in terms of creative names. The How to Train Your Dragon fandom could learn a thing or two. Hickstrid is boring.
Ask up.
Ascup is better, but it's no Hot Dog. It's no Cheshire Cat. It's no Bumblebee. It's no it's no any of the names that the RWBY fandom has come up with. Like A+ on the creativity to the fandom. That's the praise I'm giving the fandom for this episode. A+ on creativity with ship names. But back to the actual going over of episodes.
Yeah.
Is there anything more to say on episode 5?
Yang and Weiss are convinced Raven to teleport them to Ruby.
Yes, they do. And we finally, the next episode, we'll definitely get to see Yang and Weiss be back with the rest of the gang. And they're almost complete.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's almost back together. Just missing one particular cat. But I guess, moving on, episode 6, Known by its Song.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the team... Actually, wait a minute. Weren't we now on 6?
We were on 5, and we kind of skipped around a bit. Like, we definitely covered stuff that's in 6. Like you said, Yang and Weiss get teleported back. That happens in episode 6. We can quickly rush through this and, we went over it before. Raven has the conversation with Weiss and Yang, telling them her side of the story and a bit about, like, the maidens and things of that nature. And then Raven shows that she can transform into a raven thanks to Osbin. Mm-hmm. So Crow and Raven's name's very apt because if you hadn't figured it out, Crow can transform into a crow.
Yeah. Actually, one interesting thing about episode 6, at the time of this recording, it's 1 year old, exactly. So there you go. Fun fact.
Woo. And we have...
The streamers and champagne.
Like I love, I should mention I love this conversation between Raven and Weiss and Yang. Like it's some great back and forth. Again, some great back and forth between Raven and Yang, and we get to see just how snide Raven can be, which I enjoy, and just how like very much conceited she is, and very much how she's, in my opinion, her take. She lets she very much says like you can't beat Salem. She's very convinced, like, Salem can't be beat. You can't do anything to Salem. Don't even bother. And she's very much let that kind of control her and dictate a lot of a lot of what she says and does, right? And very much, like, I feel like she's using that as her excuse for leaving Tai and Yang and everything. And it's very interesting to just hear Raven's side of things, in my opinion. Not something you would get to do not something that many shows will do, and I'm really glad this show does it, right? And I'm also really glad to see that Yang genuinely gets upset with Raven.
That's actually something that is interesting. That again, like I said, you could tell that in the group, Yang is closer to Blake than Weiss, and not necessarily Ruby because sisters and everything. But it is interesting to see Yang actually hurt by Blake going back home and not really keeping in touch. Then that's it's understandable.
Oh,
and
sure.
Also,
I was talking about Raven. Again, we're in episode 6, HC, but what you're saying is also true too.
Sorry, I'm
episode ahead.
I'm trying to multitask here, and it's not working.
Then don't.
Yeah, sorry. College people can be annoying.
Bookending episode 6, we have RWBY.
You are.
True. Bookending episode 6, we have Yang and RWBY reuniting, which is absolutely, like, kind of a little bit of a heartfelt scene. Like, it's definitely adorable, like, seeing RWBY just not able to speak. Like, she's, like, very much kind of trying to quickly go through all of the emotions she's feeling when seeing Yang again, and it's very adorable, and it's like, aw. And then just Yang comes up to RWBY and just hugs her, and RWBY's just crying, and then they say, hey, Weiss, come here, and Weiss is a part of the hug. Just very much a cute and adorable moment.
Yeah, that's cute.
And it's nice to see. But do you have anything else to add about episode 6, known by its song? I'll take that as a no.
Moving on.
And say we're moving on to episode 7, Rest and Resolutions. Now, HC, you can talk about how Yang is still upset with Blake.
Well, I pretty much said what I want to say because, and again, it is interesting that it's not just I hope Blake will reunite with us again, and it's like no, she is bitter towards her, and I guess if I lost an arm trying to protect someone and that someone didn't even bother to come visit me, I would be very upset as well. Mm-hmm. So that's something. And then, but it is nice that RWBY and Weiss are kind of trying to explain to her, she has her own stuff to go through and everything. And again, it's not black and white, which is nice. And what else do I have to say here? I'm going over the description right now. I do like that Yang doesn't ignore what Raven told her, and she does talk to Ozpin about this.
Like, she does bring it up. She does call him out. It's interesting to see. Yeah. And jumping off of that real quick, I'm going to say I find it really interesting the way Ozpin, does this conversation, right? Like, he very much starts off with, talking about how, I've made my mistakes, and then kind of goes into how Raven's also not a good person, guys. Remember that. She's not trustworthy. She's very much selfish. Remember that. And then says, and she made her choice to kind of follow her own selfish decisions and think about only herself. And now you all have a choice as well. Like, I love the implication behind how he sets up this discussion and how he tells all of these people who are very much still his students in some ways, how he tells them, you all have a choice to make. No one here will judge you, but the implication in their mind is very different when you think about it. I do enjoy that. It's very interesting to think about when you look at that, right? Like how he sets up this conversation and how it flows and how he guides the thought process within this conversation towards, yeah, you can choose to leave, but you're probably not going to choose to leave because absolutely people would judge you. Absolutely the world might end if you're not around and you could have been there and maybe you saved it.
HC wouldn't judge you.
Mm-hmm. You know what? No, I won't. No, I won't. Wait,
Fair enough.
you talk about Wolf, right? Then yeah, I will judge Wolf because he judges me all the time.
But I find it interesting how that conversation is set up by Osmond. Just food for thought, if you will. Nothing to really say too much on it, just food for thought.
Don't say that again because it's almost noon and I haven't eaten anything since waking up.
Neither have I, Rush. Neither have I.
Pussies. I'm all the way through dinner and I haven't ate anything since 1 p.m. It's now 8 p.m.
We're getting there. Almost done. 7 episodes left to go. Should say
yeah, we're halfway through the episode.
We're moving at a fairly quick pace for us. Surprisingly enough, for us.
You know something? You know it is RWBY, and according to you, Wolf, RWBY is very rushed, so we have to keep up with the pace.
I do love the reuniting thing that we get with all of the different characters, like with the two, like Team Juniper and the rest of Team RWBY. That's always fun to see, and you get to see.
Yeah, seeing that reunion was fun.
RWBY seeing Yang and Nora having an arm wrestling match, and Yang launching her arm and sending Nora flying into the wall. That's fun. And nice moment.
The arm wrestling bit was funny. I just remember that was great.
And yeah, and then I guess bookended with Cinder and the rest of her allies arrive at Raven's camp. Ooh.
Ooh.
Anything else to add about episode 7?
No, not really.
Rush, you've been fairly quiet for a while. We've kind of stolen the show a little bit.
For a while, I've been making my jokes.
Do you have any opinions though, not just jokes, Rush?
My opinion is that I usually stay quiet because I don't remember the whole series as a whole.
Again, HC's fault, by the way.
Yes.
Yes, of course it is.
But I think that for your whole idea on the speech that Oscar Osmond gives on not judging was definitely one of those moments where they focused on the characters. It was just him talking. You see their reactions, and there's no music to my knowledge in this scene. It's just something that makes you focus on what's happening. And I usually enjoy those moments.
Letting the animation sell itself. It's always nice to see. I agree. And with that said, I guess we'll move straight into episode 8, Alone Together. And this is where, HC's already talked about it, but we have RWBY, Weiss, and Yang sitting outside drinking coffee, and they bring up the idea of Blake coming back, and we see Yang get very visibly angry by that. And how she's still hurt, and like HC said, how she's still hurt by Blake leaving. And I find it interesting that it's Weiss who goes to talk with Yang, and I find it interesting that the show shows that, because I love stuff like this. Again, it's just giving us it's giving us characters interacting who hadn't interacted before, and I love seeing stuff like that. I want more of this, and this is one of those things that I don't think I've mentioned it yet, but I have to praise Volume 5 for, or the show in general for, because I think, that I want to praise the show for, because they can do these little small character moments extremely well, right? Like, you have a ton of this going on throughout Volume 5 and Volume 4 to a lesser degree, and I love seeing this, and I want to see more of these small character moments, because you can do them so well. But I think the big thing to note is we have Ilya confesses her feelings to Blake, ruining every Bumblebee shipper's ship dream imaginable.
Yep, that broke my heart. I have to admit. Actually, no, it didn't. But I was, because I'm not really into shipping in general with this kind of stuff. But
Neither am I. But I
it
get to
was
laugh.
interesting. Hmm.
The bees were very scared that day. Although the
Yep.
bees have been scared of Sun for quite some time, they're not sure what to think of him, I assure you.
Hmm.
But if you're curious, the ship name for Blake and Ilya is Cheshire Cat.
Huh?
Blake can
Actually, you
change
know what?
colors. She's a chameleon. Ilya can change colors. She's a chameleon. Blake is a cat. Cheshire Cat. Do you get it now?
Okay. Yeah, I get it, but you know what? It's a cool name. Sure. Let's sure.
Again, like I said, I got to give them A+ creativity to the fandom on this one. But this is the episode where we see Blake gets captured by Ilya, but actually Blake had her own plans because Sun comes in to save the day, and they both get free, and they're back to try and save Gira and Kali, who are under attack by the rest of the White Fang. Also, Kali being a badass is the best thing ever. I love Kali. Best mom. Best cat mom.
Best cat mom. Yeah.
I mean, she is a cat, Faunus, so best cat mom, hands down. Like, I love seeing Kali in this episode, and Gira as well. Like, seeing Gira fight is just fun. Because the entire time, like, you've definitely seen, like, Gira puts off this very much, peaceful attitude and, very calm demeanor. Like, I'm for peace, I want peace, but push me and I know how to fight. Don't forget that. And it's very interesting to see Gira fight.
Yeah.
And how he immediately goes for the, all right, just ripping the shirt off, let's go.
Well, because we have to. Actually, you know what? I'm wanting to go in that direction. No, I'm not respecting that. I'm not respecting that franchise by mentioning it in a joke. No, I'm not going to do that.
I wonder what franchise he's talking about, ladies and gentlemen.
If you know, good. If you don't, well, sorry to disappoint.
Anything to add, Rush?
Just the fact that I had my mic muted for a little too long.
Mm-hmm.
No, I meant to jump in when you were talking about Jira and the mom. What is the fondness for Jira? Is he like a werewolf or something?
I think he's a jaguar.
Okay.
A jaguar, if I'm not mistaken.
Freaking massive beast.
He's a cat.
Unit.
I can tell you that. He's definitely a cat.
Yeah.
Fondness. I just don't know of what.
Actually, you know something? I didn't do that because actually it's either too stupid even for me or I didn't have the time. But I really wanted to take the part where he rips his shirt off and just make a gif that says "Come at me, bro." Your silence proves my concerns. It is too stupid. Moving on.
I'm trying to figure out.
We're way too nice to tell you that you're stupid. But yeah, no, I really enjoy when getting to see, after hearing all of this talk about how you used to be a great warrior, etc., and just seeing how massive of a dude he is, just seeing him fight is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he is a jaguar, but I honestly don't quite know right off the top of my head, and I'm trying to look it up, and I cannot quickly find it. But, anyways, anything else to add about episode 8, Alone Together?
No, not really. We summed it up pretty great, I think.
All right. Moving on, episode 9.
To the perfect storm.
I was wondering if you'd make that joke.
What joke?
Oh, you're not reference. Okay, never mind then. We'll just move
no,
on.
I have no idea what you're talking about. So okay, sure.
Episode 9. Thoughts. Share.
Okay.
I don't share.
Let's See, I'm going over the thing right now.
I'll start off by asking you a question. Did you believe Vernal was the Spring Maiden?
No.
No, I didn't see that one coming.
So you figured very quickly that Raven was actually the Spring Maiden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know it.
It's not like they're
I think
unobvious about it. They're fairly obvious about it, but
not only that, you know, it is kind of we build up Raven for since season 2 pretty much, didn't we?
Oh yeah.
So this is the first season we actually see her though in like a major role. So it was it was obvious she has more to do than just teleport Yang and Wise to Ruby, right? I knew there was going to be some bigger thing with it. Not necessarily that she's the Spring Maiden, but I knew there was some sort of a catch here. She's connected somehow.
Absolutely. But yeah, the big thing with this episode is we have, Cinder agreeing to work with Raven and Vernal and take out Crow and the rest of Team RWBY.
Mm-hmm. By the way, this is something again, kind of a noob question, but I'm not sure if I actually got it. Is Raven not Ruby's mother, at least a biological one?
No, she is not. Ruby's mother is Summer Rose. Yang's mother is Raven. That's why when you see Raven and Ruby finally meet, Raven says, "You're so much like your mother." Because remember, Raven and Summer were on the exact same team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go Tai. He slept with both of his team members.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you know what? Sadly, I can buy it. Very sadly.
He slept with one, had a kid,
I actually forgot
then
that
she ran
line.
away. Then he decided to sleep with the other, and then she died.
Well, we don't know what happened to her. It's assumed she's dead.
She's the main villain. All
She listened to Ty's dad jokes for too long.
Probably. Also, HC, you mentioned that there's definitely people who think that.
What?
That Summer is the main villain. That Summer is Salem, essentially.
Oh.
Or they did think that. Again, Volume 6 may have fixed all of that and said, no, that's not the case. I don't know. All I can tell you is that Summer is presumed to be dead, but we don't know for certain what happened yet, obviously.
You know something? Again, I said this as a joke, but since you did bring up this theory, if Salem is Summer, which, similar names, so maybe, then I don't think Raven... I don't think Raven would walk with her if that was the case.
Oh, she's not working with her. She's working with Cinder.
Still, who Cinder walks for?
Raven's very much...
I mean, you don't know if Cinder knows.
Yeah, it's true. Like, it does. If Raven knows, that's what his point is. Like, she wouldn't work with Salem / potentially Summer, though that's certainly not, I'm sure. Like, Raven wouldn't do that, but I think she would, because Raven's very much about her own survival. As long as she's able to continue living for just one more day, that's all she cares about, right? And she'll put anyone else at risk in order to do so. Everyone else is expendable. Although that's how Raven's supposed to come off, right? And I feel like for the most part she does do that. She does come off that way, but I do think that Raven does grow attached, and she can grow attached, but she tries not to. Right. Again, I love Raven's character, so I have interesting stuff there for Raven's character. And I'm interested to see what the show continues to do with her.
Actually, looking at the description of this episode and everything, I just realized this is what I was talking about regarding this the pacing in the season, because we are jumping because we mentioned the attack on Blake's home in the previous episode, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's still ongoing right now.
Yeah, not only that it's still ongoing in this episode, it still goes on in the next one, jumping a bit ahead.
This is true.
So that's what I'm talking about. Why do we need to break this fight into 3 episodes when we could have just have one episode focusing on it? You know what I mean?
I
with a bit of re-editing, this could have been its own episode, and then focus on the other stuff. You
I would agree.
know,
I
as
actually agree with you. I
when
actually agree with
this
you. It
was happening,
definitely. Go ahead.
like I would just want to say that instead of having this parallel editing, then you could have do the entire Attack on Raven's home in one episode, and then do another one with this was happening while that was happening, and then bring it all together. But breaking this specific fight apart into 3 episodes, that's what I mean when it feels like it's stuck. It doesn't really go anywhere because uh, again, we cut from a fight to talks, and then the fight again. Then just give us one episode where it's all the fight, and then I'm more into it. I'm more sucked into it. Instead of just being for, oh, that's the end of the episode. Okay, guess I have to wait for the next one.
Eight.
Especially when people watching this when this was new had to wait every week.
Oh yeah. Yeah. HC making good points, ladies and gentlemen. It's rare when it happens, but it does happen. I agree.
Said the guy who only figured that this is Berg thing is something in Stuek's monologue, ladies and gentlemen. Go back to that Berkcast episode.
Fair.
Well, now that you guys are done talking, I'd like to get in my piece that Summer Rose is Summer Maiden. I know, I'm so smart.
She
don't
may not
say.
be. It's worth pointing out she may not be.
I know, I was just kidding. I was trying to throw that crack theory in there. Oh, Summer Salem, because the name.
I mean,
is
you
the
want
same.
crack theories.
Kidding me?
Crow is Raven. Crow is Ruby's dad is definitely the crack theory there. Although that's been proven to be false because the writers have came out and said no, that's not the case. But I think some people still believe it though, which is funny.
Sure, why not?
Fair enough.
That's all I have to say.
I guess we've kind of talked more or less about episode 9, is it? Yes, episode 9, A Perfect Storm. I guess we've kind of gotten our thoughts out about this. Like, we have mostly gone over all of it.
Mm-hmm. So moving on to True Colors.
Yes, episode 10, True Colors.
So like I said, the fight on Blake's home is still going. And
Blake sets her own home on fire.
yeah. I would make a joke with that song, but I believe I'm way above it by this point.
The fandom's already done it for you. Also,
Yeah.
the fandom's already made the joke that, faunus on faunus violence. It's all we've seen so far from the show. We've never actually seen a human do anything violent to a faunus other than Carden pulling on Velvet's ear one time, and that was it.
Yeah.
So that's also been jokes that people have made. The show's not shown its racism angle very well at times, considering when the only thing we've ever seen is faunus on faunus violence. Or faunus on human violence.
Yeah, from the white thing.
Yeah, now...
Never seen humans be violent to faunus in the show, yet. That could change, though, hopefully.
Yes. I was going to say that this whole episode is basically the fight of the Belladonnas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting, just the whole multi-room, I want to say, because it's mainly kept to their house, and we get to see the different parts happening. We get to see the bomb actually be able to fight, and each fighter, has their own moment.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and then we see,
Sun helps out Jira.
Yeah.
Lift the piece of balcony that fell on him.
And save Ilya, yeah. And help to save Ilya and everything. And, we definitely see, the big moment here is, Blake and Ilya's fight and them, they're back and forth and very much kind of seeing Ilya's turn here, right? It's very much, Ilya can still be saved. She can still be reasoned with. She's not fallen as far as Adam has. and you can see just how conflicted Ilya is. And I love Ilya's character, by the way. I should mention, like, she's a great character that they introduced for Volume 5, and a character that I would love to see more of going forward, because she's very much enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's cool.
And I guess it all culminates into, Blake giving a speech to the people in the menagerie, which, is interesting to see, and how we see, like, Blake forgive Ilya and say, hey, you can still be helpful. You can still come with us. Come on. And then we see, I love the small moment at the end of this episode where we see Sun pinch Ilya, like, you stabbed me. And he's like, and you see Ilya kind of like, sorry. And then Sun just says, Sun just comes up and pinches her and says, all right, we're even now. I'm like, that was fun. I enjoyed that. That was that made me laugh, I will admit. And then I guess a small side note, we see Ruby has a quick talk with Ozpin, and, we see, like, she asks Ozpin about his cane, and, like, is that a relic? And Ozpin says, no, my cane is not a relic, but my cane still has a few secrets up its sleeve that I've not revealed yet. Very curious to see what that might be. Interesting little tidbit thing. But yeah, the big thing here is just finishing up the Belladonna fight at the Belladonna household. And yeah, I agree. It definitely would have been interesting to see this have been an entire episode unto itself, and then move on from there, instead of it being broken up into 3 different episodes. Almost 4, really, if you consider the start of it being when Blake goes to meet Ilya and is, quote unquote, caught. So, very interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else to add?
No, not really.
All right, then. I guess moving on. Episode 11, The More the Merrier.
Well, nothing against the episode itself. The sentence itself just brings bad memories back.
Fair. Not going to ask what. Your thoughts on the episode, though, I will ask.
Okay, I think this is the point where, first of all, like I said, Lionheart is a bad guy. Well, that I saw that coming.
This is basically the start of our final battle. Yeah.
Yeah, and by that point in time, the show already establishes it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at this point, everyone knows that he's a bad guy, but still, when you figure it out even before the show tells you, and then everyone is like, it's kind of like, oh, okay, sure, yeah, okay, cartoon logic, whatever.
So, I should mention it, like I mentioned it before, like Raven and Ruby kind of interacting a little bit in this episode. I love seeing Ruby try and, like, say something to Raven and kind of reach out to Raven, and Raven immediately rebuke her and tell her, like, you're just like your mom. That, to me, I like seeing that because it's very interesting, right?
Yeah.
And I find that, and again, I'm very curious of Raven and Summer's past. And as someone who's wrote fan fiction for this very, show, shameless self-plug, I really enjoy this character, and I've really enjoyed writing for that character. So again, I'm biased. I will fully admit.
Okay. Fair enough. I will say, though, just as a thought, because I actually need to talk to these people I know. Ruby and Raven's conversation. Let's ignore the Raven wants to kill Ruby part, okay? Let's ignore that for a second.
She doesn't want to. She's just
going
to.
They're going to engage in physical
Cinder
violence.
wants to, though.
Yeah, okay. Like I said, they're going to engage in some sort of physical violence.
Yeah.
So, do you think it's actually something that well represents, adopted children or step parents? You know what I mean?
That is an interesting idea, and I have no idea. That would be if we did a RWBY podcast. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That would be a topic all into itself. HC.
Yeah, probably. Well, nobody said we can do another one. This is all over, but
I would be so up for that.
Okay, write it down. I'll talk to the people I know hopefully soon, and I'll come back to you on that.
Fair enough.
But anyway, actually, I said my point. Rush, you go. I'm feeling like I'm stealing the spotlight from you.
No, please go on. And if
Let's
See,
be
I have
honest.
many- I have
Wolf
many
overshadows
tactics
both of
for-
us.
I have many
This is
tactics for
definitely my
redirecting.
this is definitely a favorite show for me, so it's kind of not
Yeah.
expected.
No, I had a hockey game last night. Got done at 11:30, and like my back is just killing me. So I am fine just sitting out and listening.
It's nothing normal, Rush. I'm used to carrying the show all the time.
What Rush is basically told me and Wolf just now is dance puppets dance. That's really what it was.
And as I said, I'm used to carrying the show all the time.
Yeah.
I'm all out of fucks to give. So, yes. So after we had the fight with the Belladonnas, we move on to, because that was basically the majority, if not the whole episode, if I remember correctly. We move on to the
start of the fight at Haven Academy with
at Haven.
everyone.
So we're starting to get, one thing I want to point out that this volume did is it started off fragmented, like the teammates, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Where we would have one piece of one character, and then another piece, and then another piece, and another piece. And you slowly have them merge together. And as they merge together, and I know it's kind of stupid to say this because it's kind of the nature of how that works, but when you merge together, you get less split off, you get more time dedicated to each one. So, because another thing about it is kind of stupid to say it, but because they come together, clearly they don't need to focus on the other characters as much. But it seems like there was a lot more back and forth, even when they were together in the earlier parts, as opposed to just dedicating a full episode to X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's kind of, you have to feel like in the same way they do it in the character stories themselves, they're piecing back together RWBY as a whole. So I really enjoy the fact that they had a full episode dedicated to the Belladonnas as opposed to jumping back and forth between. At this point we have 3 of the team members at Haven and 1 on the island. So as opposed to doing a half and a half episode or saying 3/4, splitting it among the character time, you just give the full episode in. And so now we get the full episode at Haven, which is the beginning of the fight, as you said. So, excuse me. We get this is actually where I pretty sure I started to believe that, what's her name again? Vernal is not the Spring Maiden, because we get this part where Raven tells Vernal to do her thing and just puts on her helmet. I'm like, right, and her eyes aren't glowing. So, yeah. That's pretty much it.
I will say I want to comment on the ending for a second because
Hold on.
Mm.
If you're talking about the ending for episode 10 that I think
we're
episode 11.
now.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. Episode 11. If you're getting ready to talk about the ending, I think you are. Just give me a second. Let's mention a few other small things. I do enjoy all the different things that this kind of Volume 4 and Volume 5 have kind of mentioned or had come into place in this particular fight. Like, they have a lot of stuff to kind of go through a little bit. Like, you have Ozpin and Oscar kind of dealing with Lionheart and Lionheart's betrayal and how that kind of plays out a little bit. You have Jean and his emotions towards Cinder and how he feels and what he's going through and dealing with, and how he definitely, you see him break a little bit here. And I love Cinder's reaction to, "Who are you? Why do I care?"
Yeah.
And then she's very much, "Oh, you're the guy that screwed up and should have protected your friend and didn't. That's right." And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Bitch. That's a great moment for Cinder, though. That really gets her apart. That really sets her apart from everyone else and makes her the villain that she is. That
Yeah.
was good. And then seeing Jean's reaction of, all right, it's going down. Like, that was good. Like, he just loses his shit. Like, it's interesting to see Jean do that because that's not the Jean we've seen up to this point. Like, that's enjoyable. We see, everyone kind of having their fight. We see Ruby get upset that she might be getting ready to lose another friend, and we see the Silver Eyes activate, and we see Ruby immediately conked out, so that doesn't happen. But we see that Cinder is affected by the Silver Eyes, like when we saw back in Volume 3 and Volume 4, what happened to Cinder after the Silver Eyes activated. We see Cinder, we see Cinder in Volume 4, where she's very much injured, and it's like, what happened to her, and how did that happen? We see, okay, apparently something with the Silver Eyes affects Cinder in some way.
Uh-huh.
And we don't know quite what that is yet, but we'll see. Again, like a lot of stuff going on within this one. We even see the White Fang outside arming the bombs, and we see Hazel arriving. It's like he's ready to fight here as well. A lot of stuff going on. And then we get to the ending, which, go ahead, HC.
Okay, so what I want to say is that by the time I got to watch this season 6 was either the first episode was either out. I think it was out for the Rooster Teeth.
First people, it might have been. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was but the reason I mention this is because every once in a while I still get it. Like I just got it on Facebook right before we started. That the Rooster Teeth page does advertise to me based on my surfing history. It it's Team RWBY is going to be reunited in RWBY season 6 and all of that. And when you have a tagline like this and you see the four members of Team RWBY in that clip on Facebook, all of them are going to be fine. So when Cinder impales Weiss, and they cut on that moment, it's like, at first I'm like, oh, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, I saw that tick on Facebook. Yeah, she's fine. I'm not worried.
It does take away some of the impact and the tension. And a lot of people I've seen suggest, how do you think you would have felt if it would have been Ren or Nora that would have been stabbed? Do you think that would have helped out a lot more? Considering they are side characters and they're not as important.
Something. On the one hand, it depends on it because we're in the spoilers category. Weiss is being brought back to life by Jean in the next episode. That when he unlocks his semblance. So
go ahead.
So bear with me. I have a point.
Sure.
So in the show, that's what happens. Weiss is being healed by Jean in the next episode. Which means when you say like if it's either Nora or some other side character or the one being stabbed, that depends. Was going to be the exact same and Jean would have saved them in the next episode?
Let's assume it's the exact same.
Because if you said the character would have been killed for reals, then I'm sure people would have been upset. I would have been upset as well because I do like these characters, side or not. But if let's say it was the exact same thing and like it was Nora who got stabbed, okay, and then Jean saved her, then it would be like, okay, I'm not sure. Weiss has a bit more of an impact in this case because she's one of the main four. You want to see her come back to life. If a side character gets the axe, then yeah, it's sad, and I'm sure the character, whatever character it will be, has its fans. But at the end of the day, it's not like losing one of the main four.
This is true, and also it's worth pointing out like Jean definitely has a connection with Weiss, considering the amount of times he's tried to hit on her, right? Like, yes, it's definitely like the show has set up these two characters a bit more than say Jean and Nora and Ren. Like we know that Jean and Nora and Ren are close, but we've definitely seen the show set up Jean and Weiss a bit more than say Jean and Nora and Ren, right, in their relationship.
Yeah.
And I
is Jean and Ren a ship?
It is.
Oh, sure.
I don't know the ship name for it right offhand, but I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay. Fair enough. You're actually Googling it now,
yes,
right?
I am. Because I don't know, and I'm curious myself now.
But anyway, so and that is a good. I have to say again, Jean is that kind of character that has been kind of the loser from season one, and he is growing. He's growing. He's learning how to fight more and everything. And I think this episode really does him well when he finally unlocks his semblance and he does something as important as healing Wise. So that's great.
So one thing I don't know if you guys talked about this, but because for the listeners, just to catch him up, my niece who is 3 likes to pick up phones and call, and I was on the receiving end of the call. It was from my mom, so it was like my mom's caller ID. I'm like, okay, what tell me about it? So I hear and I just hear, hello. I'm like, oh. Okay.
She likes RWBY. She wanted to talk about it. She heard you were talking about it.
Yeah. Anyway, but
what is your RWBY? Oh, let's say that.
Oh no.
Teach her about the birds and the bees, Rush.
The bumblebees.
The bumblebees.
When 2 girls love each other. You know those things you cut with? I'm sorry. Anyway, what I was going to say.
Rush, if you criticize one more joke I make after that, I swear to
at you guys talking about John's semblance. And so
Pussy.
John's semblance, thank you. I was trying to get to a point and I was not having any of your shit.
Just ignore him.
Okay?
Rush, just ignore him. It's what I do. It works for me.
I could have also done this. But
you will hear from my lawyers.
I'll bitch slap your lawyers. Anyway.
The Berkcast.
John's
the Outcast.
Motherfucking semblance. Let's just get on that shit because I actually have something to say.
Go.
For one. So I heard you guys talk about that. And did you discuss whether it was for me, I don't think it was a healing factor because
I let HC say it was, but it's not. You're right.
Okay, yeah, it's not because we got to see that. So we got a tiny hint of it in Volume 1 when whoever it was wanted to punch Jean and it just protected him. Carden, yes. So my idea, which has only been slightly confirmed by the fact that I made sure of this before when I was watching the season, is that it's not healing as much as it is either he has a huge amount of what is it? Aura?
Yes, aura.
Aura. And he was just transferring it to her to basically help her with her low auras or be filled so she can heal herself.
As Jean himself even says this in the episode, his aura it's not him who's healing her, she's healing herself. He's amplifying her aura. His semblance is very much amplification of other people's auras. That's why when you see later on in the fight, Weiss gets up and starts fighting as well. She's much stronger because Jean is amplifying her aura and making her stronger. Which is very interesting. Technically, you don't see that until the next episode, but again, all of this is one big fight. From episode 11 forward, it's all more or less the exact same fight, so we can very much clearly kind of go into. So we're kind of basically in episode 12, Vault of the Spring Maiden area right now. Not too much more to say on episode 11, And so, your thoughts?
I have to say, Wolf, you said you like Raven as a character, and I agree with you. And this episode really made me like Raven more because her fight style is cool, in my opinion. I like seeing her in the action sequences.
Absolutely. I love the way she fights with a weapon. A lot of people will talk about how the animation and the fight scene choreography in volumes 4 and 5 isn't very good. And looking back through and watching it, I can definitely see where those people are coming from, and I can understand what they're talking about. personally, it's not what I got into the show for, and it's not why I've still stuck around. So for me, it's not as big of a deal. So if it's not as good as past volumes, but even though with all of that said, I still enjoy the fight scene between Cinder and Raven. Like it's just amazing to see, and I enjoyed seeing it. We also should mention Hazel going Hulk on us, or specifically on Ozpin,
Yeah.
anyways. Just the Ozpin, and immediately we're in a fight now, and just everyone trying to hit Hazel even once, and he's like, "Yeah, no, get out my way. That kid's dead." Or specifically, Ozpin's dead. Sorry, kid. Like that was
someone's dying. Someone's dying. That's the point.
Just Ozpin's dying. Only Ozpin. That's all he cares about. No one else has to die, as he said. No one has to die. Just Ozpin, though. Ozpin has to die. And it's interesting to learn, like, this is why he works with Salem. Like, he's very much, again, he's someone who's consumed by rage and by revenge and wanting to kill Ozpin for what he perceives as the reason why his younger sister died. And I love how, you see Oscar like, hey, why don't we try and reason with Hazel instead of fighting him? And Ozpin's immediately like, no, it's not going to work. Don't even bother. And it's like, I do enjoy seeing, like, Oscar still has this hopefulness about him. He's still young. He's still hopeful. And you see this conflict with the jaded cynicism that Ozpin has. And Ozpin saying, let me take over. Let me do this. You can't handle this. You're not ready for this. You're not going to be able to do this. And Ozpin and Oscar trying to fight him, and Ozpin eventually saying, yeah, no, I'm taking over. And he does. It's very interesting, and I'm curious to see if they'll have anything more like this going forward with Oscar and Ozpin having issues. And HC, you're making that sound again.
Really?
Yes, very badly.
Hold on.
Quite badly.
Is it okay
I'm
now?
having a coughing fit, so that's why I mute my mic.
You're good right now, yeah.
Okay, good. Then this quick fix worked. So
should mention as a final little thing for episode 12, I think it is we're on, right? Yes.
We are in 12 going into 13.
Yeah. Cinder's arm is different. We see that Cinder has a grim arm? Question marks?
She has the sticky arm that the other grim had.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You're not wrong. But yeah, like, Cinder has a grim arm, and that's interesting. Don't know what they're going to do with that going forward, but it'll definitely be interesting to see how that shapes out. And you're still making that sound, HC.
Really?
Yes.
Hold on.
I don't think leaving's going to fix it, but HC is left for a moment. I guess finishing off, Cinder kills Vernal. So, goodbye, Vernal. You were an interesting character design, but you were always going to die. And this is where we learn that Raven is the Spring Maiden.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's the shocking, not really reveal of this episode of this season, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And now and this leads us to Downfall, episode 13, where Yang is going after Raven.
Well, and very much like the Cinder and Raven fight that you talked about earlier, and that we kind of brought up. Like, and just how seeing that fight is very interesting, right? And also, we should mention, like, I didn't bring this up earlier, like, seeing Cinder very much unhinged a little bit, where she very much is consumed with power. And this is something Raven pointed out much earlier in this very volume, right? But it's very interesting to see, like, how just consumed with, wanting more and more power that Cinder is, and how unhinged she gets when she gets a chance to get that, or very much when she gets unhinged when Jean almost kills her, right? Like, Jean does get a hit in on Cinder. We should mention that earlier in this very fight. Yeah. And, like, it's very interesting to see how unhinged Cinder gets.
Like, both Jean and Weiss had really good moments to shine in this fight, and I like it.
I would agree. And
we could probably mention that in episode 13 now, we have another fight, which is Adam is about to destroy the school, but Blake arrives just in time and they
Mm-hmm.
beat him. That's also cool.
Yeah, like this bringing back up, like you see how Adam is unhinged in this fight somewhat as well, and you have this moment where where Blake comes in and saves the day a little bit and stops Adam from doing what it is he wants to do. And we see all the other faunas that they brought in from Menagerie come in as well. Like, again, converging of plot lines here and kind of everyone just coming back together to meet at this one spot. It's all, really, in my opinion, it's fun to see and enjoyable to see.
Yeah. That's cool. I will say, even though I mentioned that I don't like how they split the one fight into multiple episodes, like with Blake's home, I do like the cliffhanger, like the final scene in this episode where Raven defeats Cinder, and then she turns around and she sees Yang there cut. That's actually pretty cool.
Agreed.
That was a cool
and getting to see the inside, inside of getting to see the inside of the vault. I love the design of that. Like, right, that's really interesting and neat.
Yeah,
really well done.
It's really blue, and I like all the shades of blue. I like blue is my favorite color, so it looks even better to me. Probably.
But I guess then we also like Cinder is defeated. She's frozen solid and sent down a ravine. Do you think she is dead? I guess is the question to ask.
I say no, because when we get the Autumn Maiden or Fall Maiden is killed, we get the transfer of power scenes. So unless that's a very, very, very long cavern, we didn't get the transfer of power scenes from. For one,
I mean,
theory there, and then for two, I feel like they wouldn't just end Cinder like that.
I agree. Right. There's a few things that I know that I've seen from Volume 6, so spoilers, she's not dead.
Whoa.
Surprising no one, right?
Okay.
But like for me,
oh, it's bad. It's bad, folks, because Rush just kicked Wolf out of the call. What is going on here, ladies and gentlemen?
Hello,
this is new.
I'm back.
That was a kickable offense.
Really? I don't think so. I think we all knew that Cinder was definitely not dead.
I was kind of in a boat of.
Hell, they spoiled this in the very poster that they released. Like, hey, here's a poster for Volume 6. The Rooster Teeth themselves spoiled this, by the way. They released the poster for Volume 6 because I saw this, and that's how I knew, because it's literally just Cinder standing in the middle of the poster. Yeah, it's a shadowy figure, but it looks exactly like Cinder. It's like, come on, guys. Have some more common sense than that. At least try and keep it a bit of a surprise.
Okay.
But anyone who's watching this show already has watched Volume 6 and knows that Cinder's alive. I'm sure. Don't know if she's in Volume 6, but I'm sure she is in some way, shape, or form, considering the poster. But also, I mean, right, like, come on. Cinder has still a lot of connection to Jean, a lot of connection to Ruby even, right? Like, having Raven be the one to kill her absolutely ends all of that. And, like, there's so much you could do with those emotions and that connection and how they're connected. Like, you can't have Raven be the one to kill her and that's just it. We move on from Cinder now. That's, in my opinion, very foolish and, in my opinion, also bad writing. Like, there's a lot you can still do there. So it makes no sense to have Raven be the one to end this character like that. Maybe that's just me, but that's how I feel.
Well, she's alive, so whatever. Let's move on.
Fair enough.
Okay,
episode
so
14,
episode,
Haven's Fate.
I just want to say that, this was a really big fight. It lasted for more than 3 episodes. And I do feel it's kind of underwhelming that both Adam and Lionheart just run away and they're not really dealt with. It's just like, oh shit, we're losing. Bye. And
well,
they don't
Lionheart is dealt with, though. Lionheart's dead. The Grim Seer kills Lionheart, remember?
Oh, okay. Because it just says that he flees. Oh yeah, right. He does. Salem does kill him.
Yeah. He goes to the seer Grim and he's like, "Please, mistress, don't kill me." And she kills him.
Yeah.
That was
Well, but
expected.
at least with Adam, seeing how again this was Blake's main conflict because she wasn't with the rest of the team throughout the rest of the season. It is kind of weak that he runs away. Nah, he will probably won't come back. Okay, no, just have some sort of a resolution here. It's not that hard.
I don't think Adam's completely out of the picture yet, right? I think we're going to have more with Adam to do because again, like we still have Yang
Don't
connected to
spoil
Adam
this.
as well. I'm not spoiling anything. Like this is just a thought. This is an assumption. I don't know anything, right? I can't tell you anything about that. I mean, again, Cinder I think was a very obvious one. Anyone who thought she was dead, come on. But anyways,
But yeah,
this one is very much a thought. Like I don't think we're done with Adam yet, namely because right, like the way the season ends with Adam kind of looking back the way Emerald and Mercury and the others were running. My assumption is Adam's going to be the one to find Cinder, and he's going to have something to do with that, right? And bringing her back maybe, because he wants an in, because he's pretty much at this point he's out with the White Fang. Like the White Fang no longer will support him. They've seen that he's willing to sacrifice all of them in order to achieve whatever it is he wants to achieve, right? So I don't think he has as much of an in with them anymore. So I think he's going to continue to, down that path of falling into more and more of that, that spitefulness and that rage and that hatred and that revenge field, path. And he's going to want to align with Cinder and Salem that much more because hopefully they'll get him what he wants, whatever that might be.
Okay. We'll have to wait and see, I guess.
But I think the big thing here is the Yang and Raven talk, right? Like, hearing once again Yang call Raven out, like, you're a coward. Like, Yang just comes outright and tells Raven that, like, you're a coward. Let me do the thing you can't do because we both know if you take the relic, you're going to be even more of a target for Salem. You don't want that. So just let me be that target. Like, that's really interesting to see and really just, this was a good moment. And I think this was definitely like a needed talk. Like, I think this was one of those conversations where I will disagree with you and say, like, this one was worth showing and worth having, right?
Oh no, it was worth showing that. I'm not saying not. I told you what my problem was with.
No, I get where you, and I completely understand where you're coming from. Don't agree, but I understand.
Okay, glad we figured this one out.
But at the end of it all, we finally Team RWBY, and everyone else has finally seen, like, we've seen Salem up to this point, but everyone else finally gets to see Salem, thanks to Emerald's illusion. We have Team RWBY reunited. They have the relic, the lamp. And we end with, apparently, they're on their way to Atlas.
That's, Ozpin directs them there. Let us see where this goes.
And our final scene is Raven apparently went up, exited a portal near Tai. And that's it.
And with that said, we've caught up on RWBY pretty much.
Yeah. I can finally go watch Volume 6. I've been holding off just for this, and I can finally go watch Volume 6.
Well, go ahead and enjoy it. I'll wait until it's finished.
I like the show, Rush, all right? I don't judge you. I do, but I don't.
Yeah, that doesn't stop me from judging you. I don't care.
Fair.
Dab. Anyway.
Oh, you had to. If you're criticizing me after this.
I did actually, but.
I mean, we will always judge you, HC.
Yeah, but after you have some sort of credibility though. Rush lost all credibility with mentioning that one word.
And yet, he still has more credibility than you.
Oh,
Excuse me?
You're trying to leave.
Excuse
Fucking
me.
deleted from the server.
Whatever. It's thanks to me. You two assholes have something to talk about here.
This is true.
Wolf.
No, Ruby is all Wolf's idea.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
we
but
wouldn't be
how-
doing this without HC originally starting the Berkcast. We have to give him that much. It's why we keep
So,
him around.
Yes, yes, we do.
Mhm.
And
because
with our
I
longest
make great
episode-
points,
And with our longest episode of the RWBY Outcast-a-thon so far, ending
yeah,
thoughts.
I have to say I really enjoyed this ride so far, and I'm looking forward to see what season 6 is going to be like when I watch it. Like, bring it on. I'm happy I went through this journey, even if it took me a while to get to everything.
It's really been interesting to get to hear both of your thoughts and see and get you interested in a show that I also enjoy. It's fun that I can get other people drawn into the show, and I hope that those who are new to RWBY and watch this also get into RWBY and enjoy it, because it is a fun show.
And I do hope that fans of RWBY who came across this and listened, I hope you had fun listening to both the perspective of a longtime fan like Wolf and newbies like Rush and I. Yeah, I hope we managed to entertain you with this.
It's definitely been an interesting back and forth, for me at least, and always fun.
Yeah. With all that said, I'm happy I went on this journey, and I guess Ruby's best anime and insert character name here is best waifu to those who are into this sort of stuff. I don't know, and I don't know. That's it. That's all I have to say.
HC's becoming a weeb. I'm proud.
No, don't you even dare call me that.
That's all we're gonna call you now.
Whatever, pussy.
Ending the show, because we've definitely
Your
gone too
read,
far.
HC.
This has been
Anyway,
all for the
Wolf-
Outcast. You can, if you wish to get in contact with us, let us know what you think about this episode or anything else we do, you can do so in the comments below any of our videos. You can also find us at Berkcast Team on Tumblr, where you can get in contact with us there and let us know what you think, whether you like us, whether you hate us, or whether you like our opinions or hate our opinions, whatever it may be. If you just want to be alerted when we upload new videos, messing it all up, you can find us on Twitter and follow us on Twitter at Berkcast, capital B, capital C. And with all of that said, I have been your host, Wolf.
I was HC.
I was Rush.
And this is, for now, all of the Outcast RWBY-a-thon. We hope you will join us when we do come back to RWBY eventually in the future. Until then, see you next time.
Bye.
Take care.